All right. Okay. Couldn't figure this thing out. All right. So let me just turn on my live here on Instagram. Um, all right. Perfect. What's up, everybody? So this is the first of many lives or webinars, whatever the heck you want to call them, that we're going to be doing. I'm kind of talking to two cameras. So today I wanted to talk to you guys about burnout. Okay, so basically, got a nice little screen right here for my Instagram people. Let me just make sure I can fit everything into here. Good. All right, so basically what we're going to be talking about is burnout today. So that's a highly important topic. People nowadays more and more start to consider burnout as an official constellation of disease. The World Health Organization has recognized burnout as something official. Right now, it's more for the workplace, other than in the home. But hey, man, who's to say? I mean, it doesn't make sense too much. You know, you're burned out at work, and you're not burned out. The burnout at home, the burnout in relationships. You know, church people. Everybody has reasons to be burned out. Sorry, I'm still trying to adjust everything here, trying to deal with the reflections and so forth. So let's get started. I'm going to share my screen here. Hold on. So we can go ahead and see both. Ooh, it's crazy. Let's do this like this. Hold on. All right. Hopefully this will work out well here. Ooh, okay. So, okay, hold on. Having a little issue here with my Mac. Let's do that right there. Okay. Give me just 1 minute. Wait, let's stop sharing here. Share screen. It's the first time I'm using this program, so wasn't expecting it to be all that great on the. That's not working as I wanted. Hold on. Oh, and I just closed the program. All right, just give me 1 minute. We'll get started on this. Hold on, guys. 1 minute here. Certain things you can't test out until you go live, right? And that's hyper annoying. So bear with me for just 1 second. Hold on. Okay. That's working there. And here, share my screen. Share screen. Perfect. Share. I want you guys to see that. Hopefully you guys can see that. I can't see myself, which that's all right. We're just gonna have to do it that way. All right, anyways, burnout. Let me do both clickers here. So a little quick disclaimer, guys. This content is not intended to be substituted for professional medical advice, diagnosis, treatment, whatever. Always seek advice from your physician or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding medical conditions. And I am not licensed in the US, and I therefore do not practice medicine in the US, although I do have an MD degree. I did go to school also for biology, and I did a postdoc after medical school at a big name hospital, 1 year research in nutrition and metabolism. So what's the most important thing you can have nowadays is information. You need information. Without information, back in the day, the person that had let's say the success was the person that had land, that had animals. And then the person a few years later, people with money, and people today, it's the person with information. That's why you see these kids nowadays, they're sitting in a room making money because they understand how to use the internet. Or you see somebody else go to school, acquire information, and become then a great professional because they learn how to manipulate some kind of information. So what I want to be able to humbly share with you guys today is information, right? Just things I've acquired over the years that I'd love to help out with, right? So where's the information to your life? Where could you say that Your information is your special information to why you feel a certain way, why you act in a certain way, why your thoughts are in a certain way. You have a biochemical footprint. You're going to hear me say that oftentimes. You have a biochemical footprint to your energy, to your reactions. There's always a reason why you did something. And there, at that point in time, your hormones, your neurotransmitters, right? There's a certain amount of them at the synaptic clefts. There's a certain amount of hormones in your blood, et cetera, et cetera. So the answer is not in Google. It's not with your mama. It's in your blood. Okay. It's not what your friends say. The answers to who you are, why you are acting a certain way is in your blood. And guess what? Your blood suffers a bunch of influences from the environment, from your day to day, right? So I know you're like, oh, I get my blood checked. I know exactly what my blood is like. I go to my doctor and he gives me a pat on the butt and says, you're okay. Everything is within normal limits. You guys know that term? That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about optimal limits. I'm talking about feeling great. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. So then we go into our day-to-day, our stresses of our days, right? And that's what I want to talk to you guys about today. Stress, right? Stress is a big thing. It happens more and more frequent than we would like. And there's different kinds of stress. There's eustress, which is really good stress. And there's distress, which is bad stress. Okay. I usually joke and say eustress is the one that you say, hey, I'm getting married. And distress is the one you say, hey, I'm getting divorced. Right. Or eustress is, hey, I'm going to take an exam. And then distress is like, oh, shoot, I failed the exam. Right. So it's very important to understand the differences between one and the other. Right. So you go about your day, busy time schedule, rush, time management, and we have so many shoes we try to fill, right? You may be a son, you may be a daughter, you may be a mother, a father, a student, an executive, an entrepreneur, an athlete, God knows, church member, you belong to whatever organization you're part of. God knows what you're part of. And then you don't want to be a so-so mom. You don't want to be a so-so dad, right? You want to be the best you can be, right? It sounds like I think the Marines say that, right? So, but it's true. You want to be the best you can be at what you're doing, right? And then what happens? You have all these criteria to fulfill, all these engagements, and it just doesn't roll out the way you want after a while. Or you start to see, hey man, I don't know how much longer I can keep doing this. And I'm not here to discourage you from doing what you're doing. I'm actually here to encourage you to go even harder and stronger, but there's ways about this, right? So you go about your days feeling like this, and all of a sudden this guy is the guy that's breathing down your neck. And who would you say this guy is? You'd probably say that's your boss, right? And ladies, I hope you don't say this is what your husband looks like when he comes home, because there's nothing to do about that libido then, which is something we're going to address here in the conversation today as well. So you go about life feeling like this. You feel like you have a lemon in your mouth, right? You feel terrible, and it's like, oh my gosh. Sometimes we just don't enjoy life, and that's the plain truth, right? You like your life and so forth, but there's times you just don't enjoy it. And there's times you have to do things you don't like. And we have to be able to distinguish, is this a moment where we're doing something we don't like, or is this actually, do I really not like what's going on, right? That's very important. We distinguish that. So we feel stressed, and now let's get into a little bit about the medicine behind stress. What is the stress gland? Ding, ding, ding. It's the adrenal glands. That's the stress gland. Okay. So those are the glands that fire and suffer when you're stressed, right? And what's the stress hormone? Moment to think. It is, it's cortisol, right? So your stress hormone is cortisol. So that hormone is very similar, the mechanism of your stress and how, for example, diabetes works, right? So what happens is, for example, what's the stimulus for diabetes that causes diabetes? It's sugar. So you give the body a lot of sugar, the sugar in the bloodstream, to get absorbed inside the cells, it needs insulin, or else it won't get absorbed inside the cell. So the insulin comes out, takes the sugar into the cell, okay? But you do that over and over and over and over and over, and in an exaggerated format, meaning you're eating sugar, eating sugar, eating sugar. Guess what's going to happen one day? That pancreas, right, because he's the one secreting the insulin, he's one day he's going to say, bye, Felicia, I'm not going to keep doing this, right? He gets really tired, and he's like, I'm done. Forget it. Ciao, right? So what happens in that constellation is you develop diabetes. Same thing with the adrenal gland, the cortisol, and the stress. You give yourself too much stress, that stress turns into distress. You don't know how to convert it into eustress, the good stress. You end up secreting a lot of cortisol, and guess what? Your adrenal gland one day says, sayonara, I'm out of here. I'm not putting up with this anymore, right? And it packs its bags and leaves, and then all of a sudden you have a burned out adrenal gland, right? Also known as adrenal fatigue, meaning your HPA axis, your hypothalamus adrenal axis is pumping out, right? Another hormone called ACTH, which stands for adrenal corticotrophic hormone. That's the hormone that gets the adrenal gland to work, and it's not working, right? And this can even, in traditional medicine, this has been notoriously subclinical, as we say, meaning it's not something that doesn't need to be treated yet. But then when you get into bigger conditions, like your Addisons and so forth, you have your primary and secondary adrenal insufficiencies and so forth. That's when you get treated hardcore according to medicine. But if you consistently live a life with high cortisol levels, the constellation of adrenal fatigue, it can bring issues into your life, including a situation where heart attack. Cortisol throughout your body, uncontrolled levels of cortisol is not good for you. Not only does it contribute for pathologies, but it also, and cosmetically, it does contribute for you getting a belly, but it's not good for your system in general. It contributes to forming atherosclerotic plaque, which are the plaques that are inside your arteries that, you can get a heart attack. And then classically, those arteries are your coronary arteries, your carotid arteries, your abdominal aorta, and then one behind the knee, which is called the popliteal. Those are the ones more prone to having that kind of issue, right? So what happens then? Your whole endocrine system goes into a loop, and then you go talk to somebody, right? And I want to play a game with you guys here. So this mnemonic right here, Siggy Caps, right, is something, if you've gone to medical school, you're gonna learn this at one point or another. So each letter stands for I'm pointing to both screens here. So each letter, I gotta organize myself better from now on, promise. I'm a little confused. So each screen here, each letter stands for a symptom, okay? Each letter stands for a symptom, and I'm gonna go down the symptoms. And then if you've had more than 5 of these in the last 2 weeks, you have a certain disease. You can be diagnosed with a certain disease by your doctor. And you guys are actually going to come up with the name as soon as we go down these symptoms. So each letter stands for a symptom. So first letter, S, stands for sleep disturbance. So having issues with your sleep. I, loss of interest, right? And libido is interest in sex. So even in that, right? You're not interested in going to work. You're not interested in working out. You're not interested in sex, right? G stands for guilt. So feelings of guilt, worry, so forth. E is energy. So I know a lot of people are like, oh my God, that's me, right? A lot of people have energy issues nowadays. I've been there, done that, okay? C stands for concentration, okay? That's another one. A for appetite, all right? Issues with appetite, eating too much, eating too little. P stands for psychomotor retardation, okay? P is psychomotor retardation, and that just means lazy, all right? And then the last S, we're not gonna count that for this little game because that is truly a very strong symptom that actually stands for suicidal ideation. And if somebody does have that, then they really need to get treated ASAP and seek a professional that can take care of them in that sense before it's too late. So let's take out that S. And let's count with the other ones. So it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We spoke about 7, not counting the S, which that would make it 8. So 7 right here. So if you have 5 in the last 2, what could it be? Depression. Okay. So depression, and then what most likely will your doctor give you? An antidepressant medication, right? I'm not saying it's not depression, but I'm also not saying it's not burnout, right? It can be burnout. So further investigation should be done to see if that person's not burned out, meaning going into that person's life and understanding what's going on with that person, right? Because they can effectively be burned out, right? So what does that look like? Well, we saw with the cortisol and the stress, that throws your endocrine system into a loop, right? It throws your endocrine system into a loop, and guess what? You're like, oh, it's just my cortisol. No. Your cortisol starts to throw other things off, right? You start to gain weight. Your fat cells start to secrete, guess what? Estrogen. Estrogen then starts to play with your liver, and it starts to play with your testosterone, et cetera, et cetera. It's just this huge mess, and then you become out of balance. And then what do? We give you drugs that try to balance your brain. Drugs, antidepressant medications such as SSRIs, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. Selective serotonin, okay? So what are we going to go and try to modulate? Serotonin, that antidepressant medication like fluoxetine, paroxetine, ciprexidine is actually the one to reverse when you have serotonin syndrome. Sorry. So anyhow, what happens? You start to take antidepressant medication, and it starts to modulate you, right? Or you get into comfort habits, right? On the weekends, you go and hang out with these guys. I'm pretty sure you know these guys, right? Harry, Linda. Okay. So what happens? You hang out with these people. You start to, and by the people, I mean the drinks. Sometimes you get into comfort habits, right? It could be alcohol. It could be cigarettes. It could be even some of this, right? And this slide right here, we're all a little guilty of one thing or another. And if you could put it in one word, what would you say this slide is? You would say it's probably cocaine. I mean, sugar, sorry. No, because it actually looks like cocaine, but it would never act like cocaine, right? Because sugar is sugar. Why am I talking about cocaine and sugar? Am I crazy? No. Well, if you actually look at the brain imaging of two people, or same person, sorry, and you could tell it's the same person by the indentations in the brain, also called gyri. You see it's the same person. And once, because that's very individual to the person, kind of like a fingerprint. Once these people are put in under brain imaging and you look at the pleasure centers of their brain, okay, you look at the pleasure centers of the brain, look at how much it lights up, and look with sugar, and look how much it lights up with cocaine. Pretty crazy, right? So the addictive power of sugar versus cocaine. Insane. I'll let that sink in for a little bit. That's why it's so hard when we have these cravings for sugar. And what's making those cravings? It's the insulin. By the way, little tidbit, you know what actually puts down that insulin, makes that insulin stop secreting? Stop giving you these cravings? It's actually chromium. Chromium is very good for that. And chromium is supposedly a mineral that would be in the earth, but nowadays you can see that there's less chromium like all other minerals in the earth. You know, there's a bunch of research. There's research on this like crazy about how poor our soil is, and that's why nowadays we don't have you see, it's like this whole imbalance. We're out of balance because the earth's out of balance. You know, you eat a tomato that doesn't have the selenium, the lycopene, you know, the iodine. We consume half of the iodine that our fathers consume. So that's crazy, right? And then the iodine leads to formations of cysts, which then can then form adenomas. And there's a lot of research on this. Anyways, I don't want to get into that today. We'll talk about that another day. But as you guys can see, I also do have my love for the environment because it affects us as well, right? So what happens? What happens when we go ahead and go into these mechanisms to try to change our mood, our reward, the feelings of reward, processing, just our life, right? Really, if you look at the screen here, it's kind of small for you guys to see it there on the other camera, but on the blue is the dopaminergic pathway, and on the red is the serotonin pathway, right? So the dopaminergic pathway controls the reward, the pleasure, so it's your pleasure center, euphoria, motor function, right? Compulsion, and perseverance, right? The serotonin pathway controls your mood, your memory, processing, sleep, and cognition. Doesn't that all sound like great stuff that we would love to tweak at our leisure? But we're like, we can't. Yes, you can. That's why a lot of these antidepressant medications, or if not most of them, they work on these pathways. Like I just told you, one of the names, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. And that's why a lot of street drugs like amphetamines and so forth, ecstasies and so forth, they work on these pathways as well. So us as humanity, we're obsessed with manipulating these pathways because they make you feel good. Alcohol works on another one called GABA, right? Gamma-aminobutyric acid. That's a neurotransmitter. It's more of a relaxant. And then there's many. There's norepinephrine, acetylcholine. There's mainly four, right? Spoken a lot about in medicine, which would be the acetylcholine, the norepinephrine, the dopamine, and the serotonin, right? And a lot of street drugs as well on that. And a lot of prescription medication as well work on those systems, right? But here's the thing. Your hormones play a role on this. And this is your brain. This isn't your mind. Your mind, when you want to do something, change your attitude in life, you can do it by modulating literally the neurochemistry in your brain. That's called neuroplasticity. And guess what? You see all these little pathways? You can change the route of that pathway. There's a lot of studies showing that your mind can control your brain. If you decide, hey, I can do it, you go listen to Tony Robbins enough and apply, because listen, we all listen, how many of us apply? You can start changing the way your brain functions, literally that pathway. And how to do that also more efficaciously and easily, because a lot of people say, no, I can do anything and put my mind to it. I totally agree. But that's why you should also treat your mind, body, and soul connection, for those of you that are interested in the soul connection as well, in a different way. Because guess what? Once you are optimizing your mind, you're pushing yourself, you're thinking hard, optimize your body, bro. Listen, your hormones need to be right, because your hormones are playing a role on those glands, and then those glands, when they get to the brain, they try to modulate what's going on in that brain, right? So you have to play a role with those hormones, and those hormones, do you guys understand what I'm saying? And just put it in easy terms. It's lifestyle, plays a role on hormones, and then plays a role on neurotransmitters. And those neurotransmitters literally is what makes you feel in a certain way, what makes you act in a certain way. And proof is, I'm not saying anything here complicated or hard to understand. Proof is, oops, getting excited. Proof is that the medications we take manipulate these pathways. It's pretty crazy, right? So then here's a little picture I like. This is the only picture I could find. And it looks more like she overdosed on supplements than on drugs. But those look like little supplement capsules. But you guys get the idea. You get what I'm trying to say. Basically, we get into mechanisms to try to feel better, to try to perform at higher levels. And we push, and sometimes we end up hurting ourselves, if not oftentimes, right? So you're like, okay, so what can I do to actually start to feel better, act better, and change a little bit of my neurochemistry, the neuroplasticity behind your life. So lifestyle connected to neuroplasticity. What can I do? Great little hack right here, which is autophagy, right? You see here, the Nobel Prize in Medicine goes to his name, Yoshinori Oshumi, for his research on how cells recycle their own parts. That's called autophagy. It's sick, okay? It's really sick research. It won a Nobel Prize in 2016. So it's nothing I'm coming up with. And this right here, and it's not for no reason that, the great thinkers of societies long ago, civilizations long ago, they practiced fasting all the way from different kinds of religions. You go see all the religious books written years ago, sometimes even centuries and millennia ago. They talk about fasting. They talk about your body and brain having to be at a higher connection to get your mind to work right. It's pretty crazy. And mind to connect to whatever they're trying to connect, right? Go read up on a lot of these philosophies, and fasting is a great mechanism for that. I'll never stop pushing fasting. I think it's amazing. It's not only research on paper, it's true, verified research through time. So populational studies, right? And there's certain things, just to start to wrap up, there's certain things that are very important as it relates to, for example, vitamin D. In the environment. A lot of people that don't sleep right, listen, it's very hard for you to sleep right with low levels of vitamin D. Very, very hard. Like 90% of people can't sleep with less than 15 nanograms per milliliter in their blood. And there's a lot of research talking about this. There is research as well on how low levels of vitamin D help proliferate cancer. Right? So, and how more than 50 nanograms per milliliter of vitamin D actually creates an environment that about 85% of cancers can't survive. And then people are like, oh my gosh, I get my vitamin D. I'm always out in the sun. No, I was doing a seminar not too long ago, and this lady raised her hand, and she's like, hey, why don't we get vitamin D when we go out in the sun? Well, I'm going to tell you. There's different kinds of sun rays coming through. There's UVA, UVB, UVC, right? Guess what makes it the most? Oh, and UVA is the one that's not good for you. UVB is the one that has really good properties, the vitamin D properties, and then UVC doesn't even make it to your skin. And the sunscreen only protects for UVA, right? So guess what? The one that's hitting that you need is the UVB, and it's only 5% of the sunlight, and it's only hitting you at a certain time of the day. So you have a small window to get the sun rays you need that will get you the freaking vitamin D. And guys are like, oh my God, this conversation, I don't care about vitamin D. Go talk. Well, you know how much your testosterone is dependent on vitamin D? Because in actuality, it's like hormone D, right? So your body really depends on vitamin D. It's extremely important. They should call it like vitamin diesel or something. I always joke around with that. So very, very important, very good for sleep, very good just for your body in general. If you're going to take capsules, it should be vitamin D3 with K2. K2 is the cofactor that pulls in the vitamin D. And K2 is very good. It controls, gives direction to the calcium. And another one of these, we could talk about how vitamin K2 is super necessary to give direction to the calcium, because there is research showing if you supplement solely with calcium, you're going to die earlier of atherosclerotic disease, because the calcium you take deposits in the cells. Calcium has to be directed. Things have to have cofactors. In this case, vitamin D3 needs to be with K2, and it will also help your calcium balance. Insulin is very good for you, but it can also be very destructive for you. You need it, you have it, it's inside of you. Insulin is amazing, but here's the thing. If it's unregulated, a lot of your energy spikes that you can have during the day, that could be insulin, right? You eat a big plate of food right after that big plate of food, and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so tired, sleepy, yawning the whole day. That's insulin. And listen, I'm going to tell you something. If your energy is not on point, you get less stuff done. Life isn't as productive. If your energy is not on point, bros and sisters, you like those people that get a lot of stuff done is because they have high levels of energy, right? You're just like, man, this person's done so much. Those people, you're like, how many lives have you lived? Because of their accomplishments and achievements. That is one single variable and factor. It's energy, the amount of energy you have in your life. Those moments, that 30-minute lack of energy you have in the afternoon. And I know you're thinking, no, I don't have that. No, yeah, lots of us have that. You're not go all the time. You're not managing your energy appropriately, right? That right there, that could be time that you're taking away from doing something really good. That right there, like that at work, where you're gonna get something done. Who cares about? Well, you get it done faster or more efficaciously. You get out of work faster. I don't know. You get a promotion, whatever. With kids, with whatever it is. Okay, this guy could be a huge culprit, right? And then testosterone. It's like, oh my God, you talk about testosterone for the sexual part. No, testosterone has to do a lot with mood, motivation, libido, concentration. So there's a lot of research showing how beneficial testosterone is for you. All right, it's the research literature shows that the organ that has the most receptors for testosterone, boys and girls, no, it's not the male part. It's actually the heart. The heart has about 10,000 receptors for testosterone. It's pretty crazy, right? So, with that said, you can it's very beneficial for the heart, and there's research showing that it's even possible to treat acute pulmonary edema with sublingual testosterone. Pretty crazy, right? And if you go see the research behind it, they see a lot of the benefits behind the testosterone, and even things that are linked to cancer, linked to moodiness with testosterone. Obviously, high doses. This gets abused all the time. I'm saying to you, if you're going to consider this, you should talk to your physician about this. But what really is a big issue is the fact that the person is allowing that testosterone to get converted into estrogen in the man, or aromatized, right? We could do another talk about that. What's different aromatization of testosterone and how it leads into issues. And not only that, testosterone is really good for controlling sugar. And one thing that I want to talk to you guys about is vitamin and mineral balance, right? Because, like, for example, diabetes, this is linked. The lack of these certain vitamins and antioxidants, and I didn't come up with this. You guys can go to spectracell.com, SpectraCell Labs, okay, and look at some of this stuff. There's a lot of research behind this, right? And here's some of the research articles. A lot of these imbalances, like for example, inositol, carnitine. Oh, the chromium. We spoke about the chromium not too long ago. See what it says there? Helps insulin attach to cells. Cell receptors, increasing glucose uptake. I hate reading in presentations. You guys can go ahead and read that later. But it's really, really, it shows a lot of benefit to people, and there's a little bit of research behind it. Anxiety, vitamin deficiencies connected to anxiety. There's one I really like talking about, choline, right? Because you see right there, it says it's a precursor to the neurotransmitter acetylcholine. We just spoke about it not too long ago. When we were talking about that brain image that I showed you guys. So acetylcholine, choline, that's a precursor to that. And acetylcholine is the one also that gets busted in Alzheimer's, right? By the way, the correct name for Alzheimer's is diabetes type 3 of the brain, believe it or not. Pretty crazy, right? So some research behind that. Yeah, that's a pretty bold statement. So again, I didn't come up with this, SpectraCell did. So really, really, really good stuff for you guys here. And why do I put such a horrible image? Well, guys, because it's real. I hope you guys make a difference in your life before it's too late, because this can happen to anybody. I know it's like a tough image, but that could really, really happen to anybody. And hope you guys enjoyed little presentation. I manage this organization called Biohacks Institute. It's a really cool and fun spot. And we really try to help people as much as we can. All right. So, and it's something that we do from the heart. And all I want to tell you guys, look, I'm out to make a difference in people's lives. I definitely want to help as much as possible. And if you like this, hey man, just we're gonna have the link up, of the recording. Send it to somebody, somebody that's having some issues or so forth. Have them follow us. We really just want to give good information to people. Just like I mentioned in the beginning, information is super important. It's what you need nowadays. Okay, so and you think about your life proactively, because your lifestyle. This is all that I talk about is lifestyle. Your lifestyle impacts your blood, your lifestyle, what your five senses take in. We can talk about that next time. What your five senses take in. You interpret the world with five senses. Those five senses, what they're taking in, that's it. Those five senses, that's what you're putting into your body. And that includes the music you're listening to, the food you're eating, the thoughts you're having, and that output is a specific person. That output is a specific person in a specific time and date. And you got to ask yourself, do I like this person? Do I want to take this person to the next level? Yes or no? And if the answer is yes, it's completely doable. But you have to be proactive about it. You actually have to be conscientious and ask yourself, am I treating myself in the best way possible? Am I giving myself the best fuel possible? And I think of it that way in my life. I look at my life in a way. It's like, hey, how's my energy, man? Is my energy good? Do I feel focused? Do I feel concentrated? I was just telling my wife a few minutes ago, I was like, wow, I feel like my brain is actually at a next level. Like I feel, and I haven't been there, and I didn't share with you guys my personal story, but I burned out. I'm 34 now, but at 30, I was done, game over. I was tired. I always joke around. I say, like, I was training at a place I always wanted to be. I had a six-pack, had a girlfriend, had friends, but yet again, I was, like moping around, sobbing, here and there. I wasn't happy. So that's not the person I wanted to be. So I decided to become proactive and make changes to my life. I just started this. This is the first time I'm actually doing it live, and I see that you guys right. Oh, hi. I didn't see that. Yeah, no, because things on the side. So I'll be doing a lot more of these. We're gonna be talking about lifestyle. Listen, I'm gonna try to bring you guys the best content I can with quality, things that you can apply to your life. What can you apply today? Try fasting. It does change your biochemical footprint. Don't forget about that. You have a biochemical footprint that's connected to your lifestyle, that's connected to what you feed your five senses. All right? Biochemical footprint connected to your lifestyle, that's connected to the five senses. You only interpret your reality. You're only consuming what your five senses are giving to you. I know there's other variations to that, especially on the spiritual side, and I agree. But let's keep it simple for tonight. All right, Dr. D in the house. I will see you guys at a later, almost said podcast, at a later live webinar. See you soon.